when it comes to healthcare here in Nashville, it's extremely collaborative. I don't think people have an appreciation for that. I think we could be a model for other communities from that perspective. There's just a lot of good things going on here. Again, a lot of sharing of knowledge, experiences. I think it's kind of funny. It's like somebody planted the seed here and just put a little water on it. It's just flourished.
This is the Job Stories Podcast, how people find work that matters.
Well, Wayne, thanks for jumping on today. If you don't mind, just to get us started, just introduce yourself and tell us about the current job that you have now.
Yeah, Matt, thanks so much. So my name's Wayne Pryor. I'm a managing director here at VMG Health. We're a fairly like a mid-sized boutique firm based in Dallas, but we have various locations throughout the United States. We're in Dallas, Nashville, Chicago, Denver, New York, and Minneapolis. I basically lead the healthcare transaction advisory practice. That's kind of what I do. We have a team of about 14 people that report up through to me. And what we do is we do buy-side, sell-side diligence. So in the healthcare space. So if anybody out there, private equity, investment bankers, if there's a need for any, buying and selling of any type of healthcare company, they typically give me a call, and I'm the one that goes in and kind of kicks the tires, making sure that the financial statements are properly stated. There's a real focus on what they call a quality of earnings. That's just trying to get to the true run rate of the company. That's my specialty, basically.
That's cool. So if you don't mind too, like how did it kind of start for you? Like where are you from, college? Or how did it kind of all get going for you?
Real quick. So I grew up in Denver, Colorado. I went to my undergraduate. Actually went to Western State College, which is actually up in Gunnison, Colorado. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Gunnison, but it's like one of the touted as being the coldest spot in the nation.
Oh wow!
There'd be times they get 40 below. I'm a real outdoorsy type person. Love to run, love to swim, I love to bike. So that's partly the reason why I went to school up there. Also, they had a great accounting program. They probably had the highest percentage of folks. It's a small school, so maybe the stats are a little bit skewed in that sense, but they were putting out more CPAs within the state of Colorado than any other institution was. And, I really enjoyed it. I spent 4 years up there. Real outdoorsy place. My room, I think my freshman roommate, actually, it's kind of funny. It's kind of touted as being a ski school in some respects. My roommate at the time, Mike, he would ski literally. I think he took Tuesday, Thursday classes and would be skiing Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Oh, wow.
I really never saw the guy. Stuff, but there were several folks and a lot of friends, that's kind of what they enjoy doing and stuff. They base up at Crested Butte it'd be about 60 inches and stuff like that. It was a great place to go to school though.
That's awesome. So tell us about kind of what was your first right out of college? Where'd you land?
My first job or?
Yeah, either, kind of.
I guess my first job was actually, it's kind of funny you say that. I think it was, my wife and I are high school sweethearts, and she was, cool. I think she was a junior kind of when I graduated, I guess. I went down to, and I actually enrolled eventually into the University of Arizona Master's in Public Administration. But when I moved down there, to be with her, I think my first job was actually selling computer ribbons, and man, that job sucked. Kind of like door to day. I don't know if you remember when the first printers, they had those cartridges and stuff like those HP cartridges and stuff like that. But I was literally I'd go into various office parks and I was selling door to door the refilling of these cartridges and stuff such as that.
Wow.
It was a job. I mean, it was one of the first job out of school and stuff like that. It's kind of one of those things where when you have a job like that and you're not that crazy about it, you kind of tell yourself like, yeah, I got to put my best foot forward and kind of figure out where I'm going to go and stuff like that. I graduated with an accounting degree, was still contemplating like, do I really want to go back and get my CPA, kind of move in that direction. And then eventually I eventually ended up going to school at the University of Arizona for public administration. And then eventually I got my CPA after that. So again, I think it's those lessons learned and working with certain people, certain caliber of people at that point in time. It was like, yeah, I really, this is not for me. I think there's better things for me to do.
Yeah, it's almost like there's a lot of value, right, in kind of figuring out what you don't want to do. Like
exactly. I would say that is so true. It's like this is not the ideal job.
I may not know exactly what I want to do, but I definitely know what I don't.
This is.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. No, that's
cool.
And
then, it's funny you say that, like these little nuggets that you're coming up with. I think there's a lot to be said about what you don't want to do. I mean, that's a good starting point, saying, as you're creating your list on trying to figure out where you want to go. And I will say a lot of times you run across people in life a lot of times where, they're just kind of floating through life, I guess. And I will say a lot of times, I think it's better to have a plan, at least because it's easier to go from point A to point B if you know where you're going rather than kind of floating around. So
sure. And it is kind of nice to hear too, though. Kind of your story that you weren't 100% sure necessarily in college, like that plan wasn't laid out yet, but it kind of unfolded eventually after you started working. Like that's kind of nice too, because that's kind of how Matthew and I have felt. We have friends that they knew I have a buddy that knew exactly what he wanted to do since high school, and he just went for it, and that was not me. So.
Well, it's funny how doors open to it. It's funny. I going back to like what you're saying here is, I've met a lot of folks. There's a lot of, especially women in general, and guys, I guess, but women a lot of times, I want to be a teacher, I want to be a nurse, such as that. I know people who want to be doctors. At the age of 5, it's just crazy, and it's amazing that they've gone in that direction. And whether or not their parents, it's the other thing I find a lot of times is people kind of fall in line with what their parents did. I can't tell you how many times that's one of my questions actually when I interview folks. I'm like, so you're a CPA, so tell me a little bit about your background. And I would say 70-80% of the time, I find out that somebody in their family was a CPA also.
Wow.
And maybe that's just the easiest way. That's the easiest path, I guess, for some of these folks. But I'm always kind of curious to know the ones that their parents weren't in the field. The story behind that's always very interesting, to be honest with you.
Sure.
Do you have, Wayne, did you, so when you think back on when you made the jump from computer printer sales to going back and getting your CPA, did you have like a mentor in your life that you saw and were like, I want my life to be like that? Or how did you stumble into
it? It's kind of funny. My uncle was a CPA, and I guess I kind of aspired, he had a pretty good life and stuff like that. He was a controller. He had his own CPA firm, but he was a controller for a very large construction company up in Colorado. And just kind of, his lifestyle he was like a jet setter, to be honest with you. My dad and stuff like that, he was a mechanic, a welder and stuff such as that. I love my dad and to death. I was kind of raised by my grandparents and stuff like that. But it's just interesting. I mean, just kind of the lifestyle that my uncle led, I think that was kind of more just attractive to me, and to be honest with you, I was very good with numbers. I was always excelled in math. So I was kind of more kind of inclined to go down that path just because I could flip numbers around. I really was very good in math. Kind of aspired to be more in the business type setting and stuff such as that. That's what probably drew me more to that path.
It might be just who I'm connected with, just by happenstance or maybe not by happenstance. But it seems like most of the people that I'm connected with had somebody in their life that was like their North Star or their person that I want to be like that. And so that's interesting that you said that you kind of looked at your uncle and said, I want to live that life.
Yeah. No, I think you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, that was just, he just seemed like he was just successful, I guess. Success comes in many different ways, especially as you get older. I've met some people that, they're normal people, but I find that their lifestyle and what they wanted out of their life, I would say, they've actually succeeded from that perspective. I mean, like I said, success is just a very, it's really in the eye of the beholder, I guess, from that perspective. And again, I thought my uncle was successful, but it's kind of funny. I mean, he had his trials and tribulations and stuff like that. He, one point in time, like I was telling you about the construction outfit, they had a major lawsuit that came their way and almost went defunct, but then they kind of bailed itself out. So, not even though I would say he was successful, there's some heartache that kind of comes with anybody's journey, I guess.
Right. Yeah, we actually talk a lot about that, just the ups and downs. On this podcast we kind of like diving into that emotional stuff, just dealing with the ups and downs, especially with the business. I mean, have you had any of those at like kind of VMG and handling just kind of ups and downs emotionally? I mean, do you have any thoughts or advice on how to handle that kind of stuff as you're a managing director?
Adversity, I've just recently been brought on at VMG, but I spent 14 years at Ernst & Young in their practice. The adversity kind of comes in many different flavors. You lose some good friends that you work with because they're pursuing after something else. You want to see them successful and stuff such as that. Sometimes you have to pick up the pieces where sometimes that falls apart. I don't know if I've faced too much adversity. I mean, there's one book I read all the time. It's Play to Win. I think I read that probably every year. And they always talk about having 89 problems. And my wife and I kind of kid each other all the time. It's, every day you wake up, it's everyone, like anybody, we all have 89 problems. We're always trying to solve those problems. So, I will say throughout life, you're faced with adversity. I think, unfortunately, my wife one time, probably about 10 years ago, was diagnosed with cancer, and we went through a pretty hard time. We were taking care of her mom, and the stress on that situation, her mom actually had cancer and dementia. And next thing I know, her mom had passed away. It was very unfortunate. And then right after that, that we were working through those issues for like 8 months. And then when her mom passed away, like 3 months after the fact, my wife was diagnosed with cancer. So there's a lot to be said about just stress,
Yes.
It comes with, adversity that one must face. I mean, you gotta take care of yourself. That's gotta be priority number one.
And I was talking to somebody because when you and I first met over the phone, I remember you telling the story about your wife, and mine as well went through a similar thing. But it's so interesting looking back on it. I was talking to a buddy about this yesterday, but like, I am in a weird way thankful for those kind of moments and those real hard times, because I think you do learn some things about yourself that you may not have learned otherwise, right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, weathering the storm like that. I mean, you look back and you're just very grateful. You're grateful for your health. I mean, that's always, I think, you really look back. That's like priority number one, making sure you're healthy, make sure, your mind's in the right setting a lot of times, always kind of moving in the right direction. You got to kind of every once in a while do a check on that.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I remember, Wayne, there was a time in my career where I was very focused on me. How can I get the next certification, to get the next pay increase, or to get the next promotion? But it's interesting. The last few years, I've kind of turned and been like, okay, how can I impart my little knowledge that I have into others and watch them succeed? But you said something earlier about employees or friends or colleagues leaving. And so how do you balance like imparting your knowledge into other people and seeing them grow,
Sure.
but then you don't want them to leave you, but you kind of do, because that's kind of a win for yourself. So how do you look at all that?
It's funny you say that, because I think maybe it's the stage of life that I'm at right now. With the younger folks out there, you brought up an interesting point. I mean, I think when you're younger, you might be a little bit more selfish. Well, I don't know. It's going to kind of come full circle, I guess. But what I find interesting is the younger folks. One thing I really enjoy working with younger folks or younger team members is they're aspiring to be something. When you're younger, you're always like, hey, I want to be a CPA, or hey, this is, I want to go here or travel there. There's always something to look for. It seems like they have more goals, and what I find very unfortunate, and sometimes what I've been, what I've struggled with as I've gotten older in life is as I get up there in age, and I find a lot of people that are in my circles, they don't aspire to, they lack that aspiration to be something. To be honest with you, what I find is they're in protective mode. They've gone from this situation where they've aspired to be something. Now they're just trying to protect something. They're protecting, like, maybe their livelihood, maybe, financially where they sit. And it's just all about, like, I gotta, I don't know if they're just scared or what the situation is. It's kind of sad to me to some extent, because they're just, I'm not saying that it's just a different mindset. I'm not sure where that mindset just switches, where and again, maybe it's the fact that unfortunately, as you have aspired something, you kind of go through the journey of life where you probably get married, have children, all that kind of good stuff. And then I think that's where that protective mode sits in. It's like I've accumulated some wealth. I want comfort for my family. I want to protect that situation. But it's kind of sad, to be honest with you, because when you have conversations with them, it's just like that's all they talk about. It's like, no, I mean, and when you talk to younger folks, it's like, hey, this is where I want to go. This is what I want to be, and you're kind of struggling through life, and you're trying to make ends meet. Hey, I can barely pay rent, do all this stuff. But there's this like, hey, they wake up in the morning and they're just like, they're happy about life. They're like, hey, I'm moving in this direction. I have goals. I want to accomplish these things. And like I said, when I get later on in life, it just seems like folks I kind of run across, it's just more of just kind of like, hey, there's no that aspiration's gone away.
Do you think that's why you took the position at VMG? Have you ever thought about like why you actually took that position? Why didn't you stay at Ernst & Young?
Well, I think that's part of the problem. Part of the issue is some of the folks I was working with, again, they were just in a comfort zone. And again, it just didn't seem like they wanted to grow the business much. One thing I really enjoy about VMG is, again, I think a lot of the folks I have, same mindset. We want to grow something. We want to assist. I think the other thing too is like, I've met this also. I mean, I'm picking on some folks at a certain age category, but there's others that I think, going back from back to what you said about the selfishness aspect, I think people become a little bit more giving too later on in life.
Absolutely.
They're willing to share their knowledge. They're willing to, kind of try to help other folks out. It's kind of funny. The younger folks aren't appreciative of other folks wanting to kind of see them succeed and moving them in the right direction. It's kind of interesting. I kind of, the older folks are scared on one side of the fence, and then the younger ones are, scared to ask for assistance, ask for help, all that kind of good stuff. There's a lot of good mentors out there, a lot of good advice to be had. I think you just got to raise your hand, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I wanted to ask too, because we're big into Nashville healthcare. That's kind of what we kind of consider our niches. Same with y'all, obviously.
Sure.
Why Nashville for VMG? I mean, it's fairly new to Nashville, yeah?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It's a couple of the MDs here. I think they've always been here, to be honest with you. I mean,
Gotcha.
the company started actually through a relationship with HCA.
Gotcha.
And I think it just grown. Like HCA is a very successful company here in town. And I don't know if you know this, there's a thing called I don't know if you've ever seen the Tree of Life, but the HCA is really literally spawned off like 100, basically 1,000 different companies. And I think VMG is kind of, I wouldn't say they're part of the Tree of Life, but I think they're one of the organizations that's kind of spawned and grown and been successful just due to the relationships and all the connections through HCA.
Well, that's where I was kind of leading at. I mean, we feel like the Nashville community is just so warm and collaborative, and in healthcare, sometimes that can be a little tougher. But have you seen that, the collaboration, just specifically in Nashville?
There's when it comes to healthcare here in Nashville, it's extremely collaborative. I don't think people have an appreciation for that. I think we could be a model for other communities from that perspective. There's just a lot of good things going on here. Again, a lot of sharing of knowledge, experiences. I think it's kind of funny. It's like somebody planted the seed here and just put a little water on it. It's just flourished.
Yeah.
From that perspective, a lot of businesses, a lot of private equity is actually making a home here. They're making their home here in Nashville. There's a lot going on. It's quite the incubator for healthcare. Just a lot of think tanks here. It's good stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I wanted to kind of start leading us in towards the end of this conversation, but wanted to kind of make some more about you. What's kind of next for you? What's some goals? That could be personally, professionally, but we always kind of like to ask that. What are some things that you're hopeful for kind of moving forward? Maybe skiing really more.
No, I think VMG has been a great place to land since I've been here and stuff. I think just growing the practice here. I've got a couple other service lines that I'm trying to get our executives to hopefully consider. I mean, I would hope we'd like to go down the recruiting / interim management path. Also maybe doing some specialty capitation type of arrangements and stuff such as that. I think this company is very entrepreneurial in nature. I think there's just a lot of opportunity. A lot of my colleagues here, I love working with them. Just we're always sharing ideas, always figuring out, great ways to grow the company and actually help just clients. I mean, I think the thing that I think I pride VMG on is a lot of times people come to us and again, I don't, we're consultants, but I really see us as problem solvers. People come here with, they've got problems and we're trying to help them solve their problems from that perspective. I mean, I think that's one thing that we all aspire to do is just to help our clients as best we can.
Yeah. You said earlier you were into running. And so I've got a 100-mile race coming up. Good Lord.
Are you really?
Yes.
Oh, that's fantastic.
End of April. So what advice do you have?
Don't do it.
I'm not sure. I've done a couple Ironmans and stuff like that. I've never run 100 miles. So been a big runner, big swimmer, big triathlete and stuff, big biker. You probably will do much. Which race are you running?
It's up in Maryland. It's called the C&O Canal 100, I think is the name of it. But it's really flat. It's just running along a canal that they made.
Sure. Make sure you have a good dinner. Just load up on the carbs. I know people are against carbs, but load up on the carbs the week before, have a good steak dinner night before, get a lot of sleep. One thing I used to do is just, once you put that so many miles in, change your socks, your shoes throughout. I think that it just always is very refreshing. I always try to put my feet in cold water, just try to inflammation, get things down. Eating throughout the process too, make sure the potassium, I do a lot of on these long distance runs, like you're running, some trail mix, bananas. You make sure you have the right. I thought the trail mix with the salt actually goes well. I just recently, when was it? We kind of ran. What was it? Walked we were going to do rim to rim down in the Grand Canyon, but we only did rim to rim. Unfortunately, my friend didn't do so well. But as we were doing that, I think that's probably. What's the distance on that? It's probably. I think it's like 23 miles one way, but. I'll tell you what, going down, I didn't have an appreciation for that. That's quite the pounding on the old legs. Mm-hmm. If you're going down in the canyon.
What I didn't hear you say, you gave some great advice. The socks is, I'm going to take that. But what you didn't say is, I'm going to come run with you.
Yeah.
Oh, I could do that.
I was going to ask you if you were do that. I was going to ask you if you were a triathlete. I actually started doing, it was a New Year's resolution in 2020, but I started doing triathlons as well.
Did you?
I haven't done an Ironman yet, but I've done more like Olympic and sprints. But yeah.
Where are you swimming at?
So I'm gonna start at the Nashville Aquatic Center. Is that right? A friend just invited me over there. But other
which
than
one is that? Is that off of Highway 100, or is that? Or is that the one that's next to the Parthenon?
I'll have to look.
Is that NAC? Okay.
I think it is. Yeah, I'll have to look because my friend just invited me. It's a friend of mine that she's been a triathlete for a while, so she kind of got me hooked. But outside of that, I've done the YMCA as well. So
yeah, I would plug. I think it's called the Sports Center. For what it's worth, there is a coach there. Ashley is her. She's a big triathlete, big coach here in town. I think everyone knows her. She is amazing, actually. I mean, if you're going to do triathletes, I'm gonna make a plug for her. She's with. Cool. NAC is the actual swim team that they coach there. It's out of the Sportsplex, but those guys are amazing.
Cool.
She's amazing, actually. She did. I mean, she was she's a gold. I think she's a gold medal winner. I think she was in the part of the.
Wow.
I think it was the 400 relay or something such as that. And I think she's done some amazing events. I think she swam throughout the Bay of Tampa Bay. And I mean, she's every race she ever gets herself into, she seems to always win it.
Wow.
She's extraordinary.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll check it out.
Yeah.
Wayne, as we're closing, we always like to ask how can folks that hear this find you? Is there anywhere on LinkedIn, email, Twitter? It doesn't matter. Is there a way for people to find you if you'd like for them to?
Yeah, I mean, feel free to email if you ever want to catch up or talk, or if there's ways I can help. I'm actually on LinkedIn. It's Wayne Pryor, WAYNE PRYOR, but I'm always available. If there's anything I can do to help, if you need financial diligence services, I'm here for you.
That's awesome. Thanks, Wayne. We really appreciate your time, and thanks for coming on. This has been really, really cool.
Guys, I appreciate it. Thanks
Absolutely.
So much.
Thanks, Wayne. Have a great day. Yeah, awesome.
Let's go.
Take care.
Sure, bye.